Although there are many different types of emergencies that occur, we will now cover 5 different emergency situations and responses for which you should have written plans. When a threat creates hazardous conditions outside the program, child care attendees and staff may need to shelter in place. This procedure may also occur if it is not safe or if there is insufficient time to move to a designated assembly area or secondary relocation site. Shelter in place involves keeping children and staff in place inside the building and securing the center/home for the immediate emergency. Examples of such situations include tornadoes, community violence, or hazardous material spill. To ensure you're prepared to carry out a shelter-in-place procedure in the event of extreme weather, consider investing in a National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration weather receiver radio. The radio is particularly important for facilities in rural areas where there may not be siren alerts for approaching storms or tornadoes, especially at night. Living in Illinois, there is quite a bit of extreme weather. It is very important that each program has a plan in place because extreme weather can happen anytime and without warning. Another type of emergency response is lockdown. The purpose of a lockdown is to keep children and staff inside the building by securing them inside a classroom or other secure safe area due to an immediate threat inside the program. Lockdown procedures will be used in situations that may result in harm to persons inside the child care center/child care home, such as a shooting, hostage incident, intruder trespassing, disturbance, or at the discretion of the director, designee, or public safety personnel. The most important thing to remember is remain calm and follow procedures. A helpful acronym to remember what we do in the event of a lockdown is ALICE. ALICE stands for A. Alert. Be sure to alert someone when you first become aware of a threat. If possible, call or contact 911, local law enforcement, or a security officer in the building. L. Lockdown. If evacuation isn't a safe option, barricade entry points into the room to create a semi-secure starting point. I. Inform. Continue communication in as real time as possible, if it is safe. An emergency response plan should have clear methods for informing providers, staff, etc. of the location of a violent intruder. C. Counter. Counter is not fighting. Create movement, noise, or a distraction with the intent of reducing the shooter's ability to shoot accurately. Counter is a strategy of last resort. E. Evacuate. If possible, remove yourself and the children in your care from the danger zone of the intruder. The steps of ALICE do not need to be completed in order. In fact, evacuation, if safe, is a good first option. ALICE is not developmentally appropriate for all ages. It is a concept that may be helpful for providers, staff, and administration. It is up to each individual program to have a plan they feel fits the philosophy and mission of their program. Most importantly, talk to children about violence-based emergencies. Let them know it is normal to be scared, but that is why practicing such emergencies is important. Children need to understand and practice all drills. Giving them opportunities to ask any questions or raise concerns can help children process the information of emergency situations. Please watch the following video called Emergency Preparedness for Childcare: Threats of Violence. This video comes from the state of California, where licensing regulations are different than in Illinois. Disregard references to specific forms or programs that are specifically from the state of California.
Threats of violence, child endangerment. Various threats of violence include unauthorized or armed intruders and police activity in or nearby your childcare, which may require you to lock down your facility. Other threats including explosions, suspicious packages, and threatening phone calls. It is important to act quickly and in a way that does not cause children and staff to panic. Prepare. Be familiar with authorized adults for childcare pickups. Be aware and report unfamiliar individuals and visitors or those who are acting unusual. Maintain a safe environment. Doors should lock from the inside, including gates. Outdoor areas should be secure and kept locked. Restrict visitors to public areas. Create and practice drills using code words to alert staff of threats so that children will not be alarmed or panic. Contact your local police department to make them aware that you are a child care facility located in their area. Have a process for children and adults to report anything out of the ordinary. Post car seat requirements and have loaner seats available. Adhere to all mandated reporting requirements for suspected abuse. Conduct lockdown and shelter-in-place drills with children and staff. Respond. Call 911 for any threat of violence or child endangerment, including unauthorized pickup. Follow instructions provided by law enforcement. Implement lockdown procedures. Move children to a designated safe area away from the threat. Avoid being near doors and windows. Maintain calm and avoid panic by keeping kids busy with quiet activities. Stay tuned to the radio or television for emergency information and alert messages, or until you are given an all-clear signal from authorities. Communicate with parents about situation status or if you evacuated. Recover. Review and revise drills and evacuation plans as needed. Ensure it is safe before re-entering your facility if you had to evacuate. Assess the children, your staff, and yourself for emotional issues that may develop after the event. Be aware of the wide range of emotions and needs children might have and proactively provide psychological first aid. File an incident report with community care licensing.
On-site evacuation refers to evacuating a designated safe staging area on the site of the child care center or child care home, such as evacuating to the playground during a fire. In case of evacuation due to a fire, follow the RACE acronym. R. Rescue. Evacuate the area immediately. A. Alarm. Fire alarm should be pulled and local emergency services should be notified of fire location. C. Contain. Close doors and windows to contain the fire. E. Extinguish. Evaluate the situation to determine if staff should attempt to extinguish the fire. Illinois licensing standards require that in the event of a fire, the program should be evacuated immediately and the children's safety ensured before calling the fire department or attempting to combat the fire. Evaluate the situation, including the location of the fire within the center or home, the size of the fire, and the nature of the fire. If the fire is small and is not located in a room where child care attendees are present, a fire extinguisher may be used to put out the fire. This should only be done if the staff responding to the fire has received the proper training. In addition, staff should not attempt to fight the fire if there is an imminent threat to their safety. Off-site evacuation refers to the movement of children and staff off the premises of the child care center or child care home to a designated shelter or relocation area due to a threat to the children and center/home, including natural, terrorist/man-made, or hazardous chemical release. Transportation will be needed for this type of evacuation. For instance, when a utility failure has occurred, the decision to evacuate, close the child care center/child care home, and or delay its opening will be based on the following factors: the amount of natural light in the center or home, the temperature in the center or home, the ability and necessity of heating food and formula, and the risk to the health and well-being of children and staff. If there is a suspicious or criminal act occurring nearby, you should consider following the reverse evacuation procedure, which is often implemented in combination with other procedures, such as lockdown or shelter in place. In this event, providers should move all students and staff inside as quickly as possible while assisting those children or staff who may have special needs. Providers should report to their classrooms in their center or a safe room in their childcare home. After taking attendance, providers should report any missing, extra, or injured children to the program director or family childcare. Close all exterior doors and windows. Once everyone is safely inside and accounted for, providers should wait for further instructions. When a suspicious or criminal act is first identified, the program director or family childcare owner should make an announcement or sound alarm for reverse evacuation. Staff should be directed to physically notify any groups or children that may be too far away from the building to hear the announcement or alarm. The director or family childcare owner should continue to monitor the situation and provide staff with any updates or additional instructions. Once the situation is no longer dangerous, the all-clear signal can be announced. Hazardous chemical spills are another emergency situation you should be prepared to handle. In general, most dangerous chemicals located on the premises should be locked in a secure location. When handling chemicals, be sure to follow the instructions written on the product. Never mix products together. In most cases, if a hazardous chemical is spilled, the area should be evacuated immediately. Be sure that no one tries to contain, touch, or identify the material. If a child, youth, or provider has come in contact with the hazardous material, the chemicals should be washed off immediately, and if necessary, contaminated clothing or items should be disposed of properly. The procedure for recovering a missing child is another emergency response that should be written and practiced. Anytime a child is unaccounted for, the staff member responsible for that child should search the premises. Each area where a child could potentially hide should be searched, as well as other outdoor areas of the center/home. The staff member should also double-check with other staff in case the child may be at another location. For example, it's possible that the child was picked up by their parent or guardian. If the child is not located after all potential hiding spots and immediate outdoor areas have been searched, the director should be notified that the child is missing. Now that you've learned about the 5 different emergency situations and responses, let's look at a few different scenarios and think about specific emergency responses for each one. There are many actions that may affect the safety of a child in your care, so it is important to consider many possible scenarios and create plans accordingly. Please read the following scenarios and choose the best course of action. You are supervising a youth basketball game in the gym when you hear some loud noises/screams and quick popping sounds. It could possibly be gunshots, but you aren't sure. Which procedure would you use? Click on the guide and refer to page 20 for a hint. When ready, click next to select your answer. It is early evening in the fall. A severe thunderstorm has entered the area and your community is under a severe storm warning. The electricity has flickered twice and there are 4 children in your care who are becoming anxious. Which procedure would you use? Click on the guide to refer to page 19 for a hint. When ready, you smell something burning and then see smoke coming out from under the door across the room. One student close to the door looks as if he smells something as well. Note, one child in your program has adaptive braces on his leg and walks at a slower pace. Which procedure would you use? Click on This section will discuss how to assign and communicate roles and responsibilities in emergency planning, care for children with special needs during an emergency, and develop a communication plan before, during, and after an emergency situation takes place. It's important to note that regardless of staff and providers' outlined roles and responsibilities in an emergency plan, caring for children with special needs is a priority and everyone's responsibility. Child care programs may have children with disabilities or chronic medical conditions who may require special care and assistance during an emergency. Considerations for these children should be included in all disaster plans and procedures. Remember to include specific food, medication, mode of transportation, etc. for children with special needs when creating plans. Be sure parents and families are included in creating the plan to make sure all appropriate precautions are taken. In terms of disaster and emergency planning and response, everyone has a role, including providers and directors, teachers and staff, maintenance personnel, food service personnel, and parents/guardians. Some programs may not have staff or very few staff. These roles may be combined together in order to ensure that all aspects of emergency preparedness planning have been covered. An Incident Command System, ICS, is a standardized, all-hazard approach to managing disasters. It helps a program create an emergency management system with specific roles and duties to be carried out. It also allows for a program to have a coordinated response among different agencies, such as local law enforcement. ICS is flexible enough that it can be used for most emergency and hazardous situations. Click on the Emergency Preparedness Planning Guide and refer to pages 12 through 14 for more information about the Incident Command System. When an emergency occurs, communication is the first step in implementing the child care disaster plan. A communication plan should be incorporated into the disaster plan and should outline how you will communicate with staff members, attendees, parents and guardians, families of staff members, community members such as law enforcement, other emergency services, public health department, and CCR&R, your licensing representative, and the media. Establish processes for both internal and external communication. The The internal communication plan should include several ways to communicate information to staff, including automatic notification systems, telephone trees, email, text messages, and meetings. Provide alternative ways to communicate if primary systems fail or are unavailable. These may also include cell phones, preferably with texting capabilities, portable two-way radios, stationary radio equipment, and other available options. All staff members who have a leadership role in disaster management should be trained to use all communication devices that may be employed. External communication procedures and protocols should outline how information will be conveyed to parents and guardians, emergency responders, licensing representatives, and CCR&Rs. Examples of communication strategies include Child Care Center website, social media site, automatic text or email messaging system, automatic phone system, and the local media, such as TV and radio stations. It is particularly important to have several mechanisms in place for notification of parents and guardians when an emergency arises, as well as a way to address rumors. These mechanisms must be tailored to address cultural differences and language barriers within the community. Make sure families understand the Child Care Center or Child Care Home's emergency communication protocols, including when and how they may initiate contact so that they do not disrupt or endanger attendees or staff during a developing emergency, and how they will be notified regarding the safe release of the children so that they do not endanger themselves and others by attempting to take their children out of the center or home prematurely. The procedures you have in place for reuniting children with families is one of the most important pieces of information that needs to be communicated. Make sure families know the following: how they will obtain information about their children, where the pickup point will be located, including both an on-site and off-site pickup location. Policies and procedures for who is allowed to pick up children in the event of an emergency and what type of identification they might need to show, and the importance of having current student release forms and contact information on file. Families should have a clear understanding of these procedures prior to an emergency. Incorporate the answers to these questions in your prevention and preparedness phases of emergency planning. Each communication plan should be specifically tailored to each program. Some programs are located in school buildings, which may have intercoms and radio systems available. Others may need to purchase radios or other battery-powered devices. Take into consideration what communication devices would work if the power is out and electricity isn't available. Consider whether you need the following: emergency backup power for intercom system, battery-powered megaphone or bullhorn to communicate with students and staff members, battery or hand-powered radio to receive information from emergency officials, battery-powered walkie-talkies to communicate within groups and search and rescue teams, and/or signaling devices such as whistles. In the discussion forum activity, you will be asked to answer the following question: how do you communicate emergency plans to staff, providers, families, and community members? Please share your thoughts and ideas about the question in the discussion forum activity. To get credit for this assignment, you may reply to one other person or start a new thread. Click Exit in the top right-hand corner to continue to the discussion forum activity. Now it's time to demonstrate your knowledge of the available tools and resources we discussed and use them to create your own emergency preparedness plan. There are a few basic questions to answer when developing a plan. For example, where will the plan be posted? How will all children be accounted for? For instance, special consideration should be given to infants and toddlers as well as children with chronic medical conditions, as they often require greater assistance in the event of an emergency. Where will the classrooms meet once outside? How will children with special needs be evacuated? How will the provider know if it is safe to enter the building again? If it is not safe to re-enter the building, what alternate shelter can be used? How will parents and guardians be notified of your procedures, drills, and in the event of an actual emergency? There are many reasons to have written plans. Fundamentally, it is the right thing to do for the safety of the children in your care and the providers at your center or home. Furthermore, written plans help protect children and staff during an incident and are required by state and federal regulations. Plans outline the agreed-upon response process and help to ensure consistent responses to different emergencies. Written plans provide documentation to assist with training staff members and serve as helpful reminders in the event of an emergency. In the next activity, you will choose one emergency disaster from the following list and write your own emergency preparedness plan. Shelter in place, lockdown, evacuation of building, hazardous spill, or missing child. Establish roles for the director, providers, teachers, administrative staff, etc. Each person that plays a role in your center or home should also play a role in emergency preparedness. Refer to the resources, emergency situations and procedure/response recommendations, and the Emergency Preparedness Planning Guide for specific guidelines for each emergency, and use them to outline a plan specific to your program environment. Remember to include specific provisions for children with special needs, communication plans for communicating with staff, parents and families, families of staff members, community members, such as law enforcement and emergency services, licensing reps, and the media. Emergency preparedness roles, for instance, the roles of an incident commander, operations, planning, logistics, and finance as applicable.